Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today for this amazing alumni chat with Gerard Phillips. We're just going to give it a few minutes before we really kick into gear and let everybody settle in. We're just going to give it another minute and then we will get started.
Righty.
Awesome. Another minute to have some more folks trickle in. All right, let's just go ahead and get started. So, hi everyone, and welcome. My name is Nicole Methvin, and I am the Employee Relations Specialist here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. We are so excited to have you joining us today for this special alumni and employer conversation designed specifically for UAGC students and graduates. Before we get started, a few quick housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded and a copy will be shared with all registered attendees. Please use the Q&A feature at any time to submit questions that you might have. You're also welcome to engage in the chat throughout the session, and members from our career services team will be engaging with you in the chat today. If you experience any technical issues, please try logging out and back into Zoom. Now, I'm so excited to introduce today's amazing guest. We are joined by Gerard Phillips, a proud UAGC alum and manager with Lumen Technologies, who will be sharing his career journey, growth mindset transformation, and insights into building a successful career in today's workforce. Before we dive in, I just want to share that Gerard will be speaking from his own personal experiences and perspectives during his time at Lumen Technologies and UAGC, really giving you all an authentic look into his journey. So, Gerard, thank you so much for being here and for spending time with our UAGC community today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, before we dive in, I want to really ground this conversation for our incredible students and alumni who are tuning in. So many of whom are actively job searching, maybe exploring different career paths, or really just trying to break into organizations like Lumen. So from my experience as a career advisor, I've had so many conversations with students who really feel unsure about maybe how to translate their experience into opportunity, especially when their path really hasn't been traditional or linear. And so now in my current work with UAGC, supporting students and alumni, I really see just how much employers value that consistency and adaptability and people who are willing to kind of grow through experience. So to start us off, Gerard, can you please share your career journey and really how you originally got started with Lumen Technologies?
Absolutely. I started my career in telecommunications more than 20 years ago as a network installer. I was very hands-on, working in the field, learning the infrastructure, and building a strong technical foundation. Over time, I realized I wanted more growth and a broader impact. I wanted to be a part of the change, not just execute the work. That led me into an engineering role with Lumen, where I was able to take the knowledge I gained in the field and built my career staying curious, being consistent, and taking advantage of opportunities to learn and grow.
That is really such a powerful journey, Gerard. And I really appreciate how you highlighted that progression from hands-on fieldwork into engineering. And one thing that we're often emphasizing with our students is exactly what you demonstrated. Your first role is rarely your final destination, but it's often that foundation that really shapes everything that comes next. So and that actually really leads into something that students and alumni are asking us all the time here. So what helped you stand out and ultimately land your opportunity with Lumen?
For me, it came down to consistency and mindset. I
Mhm.
didn't know everything and I never pretended to, but I showed up prepared, I asked questions, and I stayed coachable. I took initiative, followed through, and I built trust over time. That reliability really mattered.
I so appreciate you saying that, Gerard, especially the emphasis that you put on consistency and being coachable, right? From my experience working with students through career advising, those are two of the biggest differentiators we really see when people are successfully moving from applying to getting hired. And it's not always about having that perfect resume, right? It's about how you show up or how you learn and how you build that trust over time. So, kind of building upon that, Gerard, what advice would you give UAGC students and graduates who are trying to break into companies like Lumen today?
I would say focus on transferable skills and don't underestimate your experience. Whether it's leadership, problem solving, or communication, those skills matter across roles. And tell your story clearly. Employers aren't looking for perfection, they're looking for potential and a willingness to grow.
Thank you so much for that. That's really practical and also super encouraging for our students, especially around transferable skills and storytelling. So now I kind of want to shift into something that you have spoken about before that really connects across education and the workplace, growth mindset. So in our work with students, we're often seeing a moment where they're performing well, but maybe something kind of starts to feel flat or unchallenging. So they know that they want more, but they're not sure exactly how to move forward. And I know that you have shared that you've experienced something similar in your career. So can you please maybe talk just a little bit about what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, I was kind of felt uncomfortable. I felt stuck, like I was in the same
Yeah.
role for 20 years. And while I was good at what I did and I enjoyed the work, I kind of felt like I was on autopilot. Like everything was familiar, the same van, same tools, same routine. At first, the comfort felt like stability, but over time, I started to feel like I was being limited. I
Mhm.
wasn't being challenged the way I used to be, and I realized I was running on experience instead of learning. That's when it hit me that comfort wasn't the problem, staying there too long was.
And that shift that you just described, Gerard, like from that comfort to stagnation, I feel like is something that a lot of professionals definitely go through, but they might not always have the language for. And what stands out to me is really how self-aware that moment was for you before really anything externally changed. So, from a development perspective, that awareness really is often that first signal that growth is needed, even if everything might look fine on the surface. So, I would love to dig just a little bit deeper on this. So, what mindset were you in at that time and what kind of changed for you?
At the time, I had a fixed mindset. I believe my path was already set, that it was just how my career was going to go. I tied my growth to my job title, my role, and my circumstances instead of my choices. I would say the shift happened when I realized something simple but uncomfortable. My growth was my responsibility, not my company's, not my manager, and not the situation I was in. Once that clicked, everything changed. I stopped waiting for permission, stopped blaming, and started taking ownership of what I could control. That mindset shift is what opened the door to real change.
That's a really powerful reframing, especially taking ownership of your own growth. In career coaching, we're often finding ourselves telling students that there really is a big difference between waiting for opportunity, but actively preparing yourself for it. And so when you found yourself making that internal shift, what did embracing that shift look like for you in your daily actions or decisions?
It looked like saying yes to challenges I wasn't sure I was ready for, asking questions instead of pretending I had all the answers, and going back to school after being away for a long time. I deliberately put myself in situations where I wasn't the expert anymore. And
Mhm.
that discomfort used to scare me, but I realized it was actually a signal that I was growing. Instead of backing away from it, I started learning from it. And that change in mindset is what moved everything forward.
I really appreciate you breaking that down, Gerard. It really brings the idea of growth mindset to life. And I kind of want to tie this now into your UAGC experience because your decision to go back to school after 25 years while balancing work and life is incredibly relatable for so many of our learners. And we serve a lot of adult learners, working professionals, and parents who are doing exactly what you did. So your story really resonates. What motivated you to take that next step?
I knew I wanted more for my career and my future. And I also wanted to prove to myself that even after a long gap, I could finish what I started. Around that time, my mentor told me something that really stuck with me. If
Mhm.
I wanted to continue and grow as a leader, I needed to go back to school and finish my degree. Not long after that conversation, my organization went through a reduction in force, and I made a deal with myself. If I made it through, I wouldn't see it as luck, but as a signal it was time for me to invest in myself and keep growing. Going back to school became a commitment to my future and to taking ownership of my growth.
There is so much strength really in what you just shared there, right? Like, especially how you tied personal accountability to timing and to opportunity. And I will just also like to say that I really appreciate you mentioning mentorship because in our work with students, we consistently see how one conversation or one piece of guidance can really completely shift somebody's direction. So, thinking specifically about your UAGC experience, how did UAGC support you through that journey of balancing work, life, and school?
UAGC gave me flexibility without sacrificing structure. I was able to balance work, family, and school while still being challenged, and that support system made all the difference for me. What really stood out was how relevant the coursework was to what I was doing professionally. At the time, I was a supervisor with my eyes set on becoming a manager, and my degree was in business leadership. I wasn't just learning theory, I was learning things I could immediately apply to my day to day work, like communication, decision making, and becoming a more effective leader for my team. Because of that, school didn't feel separate from my career, it felt connected. I really believe the skills I was learning at UAGC helped me move from a supervisor role to a manager role in just under a year. And I also want to take a moment to thank my academic advisor, Kim. She was incredibly supportive and helpful through my journey at UAGC, and having someone like her made the experience even more impactful.
That is so incredibly valuable, Gerard, for our students to hear, especially that connection between coursework and real world application. And I also love that you highlighted support systems because success in school and in career is rarely something that we do alone. So before we move forward, I do want to acknowledge that this kind of journey is not easy. So, what challenges did you face during that time, and how did a growth mindset really help you to push through?
There were definitely moments where I felt overwhelmed,
Mhm.
but I kept reminding myself that progress matters more than perfection, right?
Mhm.
Better, not best, right?
Yep.
Mindset helped me stay consistent, and consistency is what carried me through. Just as important was the support I received from my wife, who never stopped pushing me forward, cheering me on, even when things were difficult.
Thank you so much for sharing that, especially that emphasis on consistency over perfection and also having that incredible support from your wife.
Yeah.
So now I kind of want to shift gears into your incredible leadership role at Lumen. So, how are you applying a growth mindset in your role as a leader today?
I apply growth mindset by encouraging feedback, adaptability. I try to lead by example, being
Mhm.
open when I don't have all the answers, and showing my team that learning and improvement are ongoing. That mindset became important enough to me that I wrote my book, Journey of a Growth Mindset. It's really for people who are still figuring things out, people who don't have all the answers, but are willing to keep learning and keep growing anyway.
I just want to say how much I really appreciate how you framed leadership as modeling behavior. And it's also so incredibly inspiring that you wrote a book on the journey of growth mindset. We're also going to be dropping a link to Gerard's book in the chat if any of you are interested in looking at that and reading more about Gerard and this incredible topic. So, from my experience working with students and really helping them to prepare for the workforce, I often talked about how leadership isn't really just about titles, but it's more so about creating environments where maybe people feel safe to learn, ask questions, as well as grow. So, kind of building on that, how do you feel resilience and adaptability show up in your leadership style?
I would say they show up in how I respond to change.
Hmm.
Stay solution focused, and I help my team see challenges as opportunities instead of obstacles to avoid.
I love that.
One way I reinforce this is through my Mindset Monday messages. I create a message at the start of each week, and it helps set a positive, growth focused tone, especially during times of uncertainty.
I really love that you brought in intentional practices like your Mindset Monday messages. I think that's such a simple but powerful way to really reinforce culture consistently. And
Yeah.
what stands out to me is really how those small habits often have the biggest impact over time. So to kind of bring this full circle, what does growth over perfection mean to you now in your current role?
Growth over perfection means I don't wait until everything is perfect before taking action. I focus on learning, adjusting, and moving
Mhm.
forward. One of my mentors used to say, fail fast. And what that taught me is not to be afraid to try new things. I,
Mhm.
I learned not to spend time forcing a bad plan once it's clear it isn't working. Instead, I make adjustments, I keep moving forward, and progress comes from action, not from waiting until you have it all figured out.
Totally. And I really do appreciate you saying that, especially the idea that progress does come from action, right? It's not perfection. And that's a message that I think a lot of our students and alumni need to hear, particularly when they're early in their careers or they might be navigating uncertainty. And I feel like it also connects back to something that we've been touching on throughout this conversation, Gerard, of how mindset plays such a critical role in career development and long-term success. So, from your experience, Gerard, what advice would you give to help students to really help them to stay confident in their job search?
Staying confident really comes down to consistency and perspective. You know, don't let rejection define you. Every no is part of the process.
Hmm.
I experienced that firsthand myself when I applied for my engineering role here at Lumen. I also applied for another position around the same time and I didn't get it. And instead of letting that stop me, I treated it as feedback. I kept going, I kept improving, kept learning. And if you stay committed to progress, the right opportunity will come.
I love that. I think that's such an important distinction, especially the idea of not letting rejection define your trajectory, right? But instead using it as feedback to really keep refining your approach and move forward. And I also just really appreciate, Gerard, how you emphasize consistency because in our conversations with employers about hiring needs, we often hear that long-term persistence is often what separates candidates who will eventually land opportunities from those who stop too early in the process. And we're also hearing, consistently, while technical skills do matter, employers are also just as focused on how somebody shows up, right? Like how they communicate, how they collaborate, and how they respond maybe when things don't go as planned. So, with that in mind, and from your perspective at Lumen, what skills or qualities are most valued in candidates right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Adaptability, communication, problem solving, and a willingness to learn are some of the most valued skills right now. Things are changing quickly, so the ability to adjust and ask good questions and work through problems really matters. Technical skills are important, but employers are also looking for people who can communicate clearly, collaborate well, and continue to learn as roles evolve. And those skills apply no matter what industry you're in.
100%, Gerard. I could not agree with you more on everything you just said. And it's also definitely aligning with things that I'm hearing as well, and especially the emphasis on adaptability and that continuous learning as roles continue to evolve so quickly. And I think what's really helpful for our students and alumni is recognizing that these skills don't just show up on a resume, they show up in how you tell your story, right? How you engage in interviews and how you demonstrate your approach to problem solving in real time. So, kind of building on that idea of storytelling and presence, what helps candidates really stand out in resumes and interviews?
What really helps candidates stand out is how they apply their skills, not just listing them.
Hmm.
The people who make an impression tend to be curious, prepared, and intentional. They ask thoughtful questions, seek feedback, and take ownership of their work. They don't just wait to be told what to do, they look for ways to add value. Also, attitude and mindset matter a lot here. Showing
Hmm.
reliability, accountability, and a willingness to step outside of your comfort zone goes a long way. Employers notice candidates who collaborate well, communicate clearly, and handle challenges with a positive, solution focused approach. Those behaviors signal someone who's willing to contribute long term and not just fill a role.
Yes, Jared, I really appreciate everything that you just said, especially that emphasis on how mindset and behavior show up just as strongly as technical experience, right? That's something that we're consistently reinforcing with students because it really is what helps translate potential into opportunity. And that naturally connects kind of into the next part of our conversation. So now I would love to kind of shift into opportunity awareness for our students and alumni who might be thinking about how they can connect into organizations like Lumen. So, with that in mind, Gerard, can you maybe share what types of roles are currently available at Lumen?
Absolutely. There's opportunities across tech, network engineering, sales, customer operations, and more. The Lumen Careers website is the best place to explore that what's available. My advice is to look beyond just the job title and read the descriptions carefully because skills and mindset often matter more than just checking every box.
That is so true, Gerard. I could not agree with you more on that. And it's also really helpful. And I appreciate too how you brought it back to focusing on skills and mindset rather than just titles, because that's often where students and alumni can really open up more possibilities than they initially realize. And
Yes.
we will also be dropping a link to the Lumen Careers website in the chat as well. Before we move into audience questions, I want to close with a forward-looking question. As someone working in a very fast-changing industry, how do you see technology and AI shaping the future of work in your industry?
So I sometimes say this half jokingly, but there's truth to it.
Mhm.
AI by itself doesn't replace people, but people who know how to use AI tools effectively tend to have an advantage. That's why
Mhm.
adaptability and continuous learning matter so much. The
Totally.
goal isn't to fear technology, but to learn how to work alongside of it.
Yes, Gerard. I really appreciate that perspective, especially the idea that it's not about AI replacing people, but how people choose to adapt and use it as a tool and resource. And what you're highlighting really does connect directly to what we see in career advising conversations all the time. Students don't necessarily need to know everything, but they do need to stay willing to learn and evolve as tools, industries, and expectations really continue to change. And so, to kind of build on that for our students and alumni, what advice would you give them to stay ahead as the workforce continues to evolve?
I would say just stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to evolve your skill set. The people who stay relevant aren't the ones who claim to know everything. They're the ones willing to ask the questions, try new things, and adapt as work continues to change. When you
Mhm.
treat learning as an ongoing process instead of a finish line, you set yourself up for growth alongside whatever comes next. I've seen this firsthand at Lumen. To date, I'm aware of 7 or 8 Lumen employees who have either completed their degree or are currently working toward one through UAGC. And Lumen offers strong tuition reimbursement programs, and
Mhm.
UAGC has been a great partner in making higher education accessible for working professionals. So that combination gives employees the opportunity to keep developing their skills while continuing to grow their careers.
That's such a powerful perspective, Gerard, especially the idea of learning as a continuous process rather than a finish line. And I also just want to say how meaningful it really is to hear UAGC represented in that way. For our students and alumni who are tuning in today, it's really inspiring to see how education, career growth, and organizational support can really come together in such a tangible way. And I really do think that your journey really does reflect everything that we talked about today, from technical expertise to leadership to continuously investing in growth and helping others to do the same. So, Gerard, thank you so incredibly much for sharing your journey, your experiences, and your insight into growth mindset and leadership. A lot of what you shared brings these concepts to life for our UAGC community. So, at this time, we are going to go ahead and open it up for live questions from our attendees, and I will go ahead and check out and see what we have in the chat. All right, it looks like we have some great questions already, Gerard. So, all right, this is a great one. So, Gerard, what is one piece of advice you wish you had received earlier in your career that would be helpful for students today?
Get a mentor as soon as you can.
Love that.
I currently have about 3 or 4 mentors. So the importance of having a mentor, someone who's already walked the walk, talked to the talk, and can lead you by,
Mhm.
example really matters. So I would say get a mentor today.
I love that. Yes, having that guidance and that person that you can go back to at any point with any kinds of questions you have, so, so, so important. So thank you for that, Gerard. We
Mhm.
have another great question here. So, how has Lumen supported your own professional growth and development throughout your career there?
I really love working at Lumen.
Yeah.
I've been with the company for it'll be 26 years in October. I started at the bottom, worked my way up to the top. Lumen offers so many benefits. We have book clubs. We've done Dare to Lead. We do career building. We use AI to encourage learning. Lumen is very supportive in your individual growth, and as our growth as a team in a whole. So Lumen has been, more than supportive, and I couldn't thank them enough for helping me.
That's amazing. I so appreciate you sharing that, Gerard. Thank you so much. Looks like we have another great question. So I am going to kind of throw another one your way, Gerard. So, what advice would you give UAGC students or graduates who might just be starting their job search and feel kind of about a little unsure about where to begin?
I always say just don't be afraid of the response. Apply.
Hmm.
If you think you like to work at the company, apply. Have a good resume, a good cover letter, and just keep applying and try different things. I've applied at places and haven't got calls back. I've gotten calls back. I've turned some things down, but you don't know if you don't try. So I would say just the
Absolutely.
first step is to start the race.
Absolutely. I love that. You're never going to know unless you try. You put yourself out there. So I really appreciate that insight for sure. We're getting a lot of love for you in the chat here, Gerard. They say that you're absolutely amazing. They're so grateful for you being here today. We will be putting up Gerard's contact information here shortly, so you can connect with him on LinkedIn. But there is another great question in the chat that I want to make sure that we get to. So, can you share what a typical career path or growth trajectory might look like for someone starting at Lumen, Gerard?
That's a good question, but that
Hmm.
would just depend on the role that you take. So I can speak on
Totally.
as a manager, I manage engineers, right? So we will hire
Hmm.
an ops academy. So you're almost like an apprentice engineer, and you can go from engineer one, two, and to becoming a senior engineer. And from a senior engineer, you can, sky's the limit. You can be a lead engineer. You can go to a manager. You can go to a director. So Lumen has a great path for you to continue to move up. Lots of roles and just the ways to step yourself up to the top.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. And I'm seeing too in the chat here, like going back to what you were saying with your previous question or your previous answer, the first step is to start the race. A lot of people are resonating with that. So thank you for sharing that. So I will see. There is another question here at the chat. Let's take a look here. This is actually a pretty interesting question. So, if at any point do you think that someone should no longer have a mentor, or should someone continue to have a mentor as well as be a mentor towards others? Is there such a thing as having too many mentors or mentees? What are your thoughts on this, Gerard? I'm kind of curious.
Well, too many mentors. I'm the wrong one to ask that because I have four right now. So, no, I think that learning is continuous, right? You never stop
Right.
learning. So, if you have the right mentors and the people that can push you and help you continue to grow, then you're always going to need mentors because the goal is to always keep learning and to always keep growing. So, you need help to elevate, right? We need mentors and people that can continue to help and push us in that direction. So, in my opinion, I've steadily had 3 to 4 mentors for a
Love it.
while in this growth area that I've been in.
Yeah.
So I believe that, you keep the mentors until, you hang it up.
Exactly. No, that's really great. Great advice there, Gerard. I really appreciate that insight on that question. There also are a lot of folks in the chat who are super excited about your book, and we are going to be dropping a link to that in the chat if you haven't seen that yet. Somebody is asking where we can get the book at. So I don't know, Gerard, we will drop that link in the chat, but if you want to mention it here as well, feel free to do so.
Oh yeah, you can get the book on Amazon. The book was
Awesome.
the #1 new release for almost a month on Amazon. So I was very happy about
Amazing.
that. Yeah. And
That's awesome.
there's a digital copy as well as a hard copy and a workbook to go with it if you need that as well.
I love that. I actually have a question too about the workbook. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on what that would entail, what the workbook consists
The
of?
workbook, yeah, the workbook kind of just goes hand in hand with the book. I'm a guy who
Amazing.
likes to write and journal. So it
Yeah.
just allows you to write out your SMART goals. It allows you to journal down, where you're at in the process. So if you like to write like I do, then the workbook will be good for you. But you can definitely have the book without the workbook.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Gerard. I think we are getting close to ending with questions here. If anybody has any last minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, if you have any questions for Gerard, you can always email them to us at careerservices@uagc.edu. We had so much fun chatting with you today, Gerard, and we are coming close to kind of the end of our time today. But Gerard, I just want to take a minute again to thank you for sharing your journey as a UAGC alum, your growth mindset story, your insights into building that meaningful career at Lumen Technologies. We really, truly appreciate your time and your generosity. For our students and graduates, if you are interested in exploring opportunities with Lumen, visit the Lumen Careers page for open roles. You can connect with Gerard on LinkedIn as well. We just put the profile information up on the screen screen. Please feel free to check out his YouTube channel too. We have been dropping that in the chat as well. Log into Handshake through your student portal, and then also stay connected with us here in UAGC Career Services for any upcoming events and employer sessions. You're also going to be receiving a follow-up email with today's recording. And if you need any support at all with either your resume, job search, interview preparation, please feel free to contact us at careerservices@uagc.edu. And then before you go, please do take a moment to complete the short survey that will pop up on your screen when you close out of today's webinar. Your feedback really does help us to improve future events. So again, thank you, Gerard. I feel like I could thank you 1,000 times over. This was so much fun. I loved having this conversation with you today. Thank you as well to all of our incredible UAGC students and graduates for joining us today. We so appreciate your time, and we really wish you continued success in your career journey. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone, and take care.